assessment is an important concept, and it has equal importance to teaching. Any teaching process should be followed or accompanied with assessment process, where the teacher can assess the various aspects of his or her student throughout the teaching learning process. As a matter of rule, there is no teaching and learning process without assessment procedures. The assessment procedure can be within the course, before the course, or after the course. Now, let us begin with the meaning of assessment. Assessment is any procedure taken, designed, and conducted by the teacher in order to take an idea concerning the student's performance. For example, when I teach my students in a specific course for a specific period of time, it is important to make tests. So the benefit of using tests here is to assess my students' achievement in this course and specifically in this period of time. So assessment is related to testing. When I make a test, I'm trying to assess my students' performance. In other words, I'm trying to assess what the students have learned throughout a specific period of time. So as it is mentioned here, the line which is highlighted by yellow color, assessment is a topic of concept to language teacher. This means that language teacher is continuously in need to conduct assessment. How to conduct this assessment? Of course, by using tests. Another important thing here is that they must periodically measure their students' performance. As I told you, it can be conducted before the semester, sorry, at the beginning of the semester, at a specific interval time throughout the semester, and at the end. This is what is meant by should be periodically conducted by the English language teacher. We are talking about assessment for English language teacher. So, okay, now let us go to this important question. We have 4 important questions that form the basic concepts for language assessment. These 4 questions are: why do we assess? In which we will deal the main reasons for doing assessment. How do we assess? Which deals with the manner of conducting assessment. What do we assess? The language aspects. It deals with the language aspects to be assessed by the English language teacher. And when do we assess? Which deals with the time of conducting, the probable time for doing assessment. Now let us begin with the first question, which is, what do we assess? Sorry, what is assessment? Assessment is any means of checking what students can do with the language. It also includes what they cannot do. But proper assessment gives due weight to positive sides of their achievement. This means that assessment deals with the way, as a concept, it deals with the way and the main procedures followed by the English language teacher in order to check his students' performance, as I told you, in a specific period of time and in a previously taught teaching material. For example, when I teach you grammar, I have to assess your knowledge related to grammar. When I teach you reading comprehension, my assessments should be related to teaching the reading skill. And what type of reading? Reading comprehension. Okay, that is meant by assessment. Why do we assess? Why do we need to make tests, students? Are there teachers among you now? Hello?
Yes, sir. We can't hear you well.
Why do we assess? Some of them are already teachers at the secondary school. So why do we need to assess?
To make a measure or how the student can get achievement.
So to make measurement concerning what? We measure what? Side.
Their achievement in a certain
Sunshine. Who is Sunshine, please?
language. My name is.
So okay. Who is Sunshine?
That's
What's
me.
your name?
Ayad Ziad Shtew, sir.
Oh, okay. You are welcome, Dayad.
Thank you, sir. It's really kind of you.
Yes, I am. Why do we need to make an assessment as an English language teacher?
In order to measure the achievement of the students and what they can do with the language.
Yes. So measuring students' achievement.
In a certain period of time.
Yes. Is there any other purpose for doing the assessment?
Maybe sometimes evaluate the progress of a student.
Evaluate the progress of students.
Yes.
Any other purpose for doing assessment?
Actually, sometimes to discover what has gone wrong with the students.
Yes.
Assess
It's
the
okay.
general and the language
Yes.
skill.
Is there any other purpose for assessment? There any other students to participate, please?
To classify the students in their
Noor
course.
Abbas, yes, to classify the students. Classify them to what?
On a suitable course.
So, okay, why do we need to classify them?
Okay, we need to know who is the favorite in the students, who is the number one
Okay.
or number two.
So,
Evaluate their intelligence.
Yes. So intelligent to classify the students according to their intelligence and according to specific features. So, okay, another response?
To strength and the weak students.
Sorry?
Students.
It's okay. Now listen to me, please. What have been mentioned by Ayad and Noor is to some extent related to one of these 7 purposes in assessment. So what is mentioned by Ayad, he stated that we evaluate their achievement. So this is part of evaluation purpose of doing assessment. He also told us that it is important to collect information concerning student progress. Another student, I think Noor, mentioned that it is important to collect some information concerning specific features of the students, for example, intelligence. So here, what is stated by Noor, though it is not mentioned here in the purposes of doing assessment, but it is to some extent an aspect that is important to be assessed by the teacher. So this test, which is designed to measure students' IQ level, which is intelligence quotient level, the so-called intelligence quotient level, is called aptitude test. So okay, so we mainly do assessment in order to, number one, to place or classify students on a suitable course. If you recall your information, when you came to the English department and apply to be enrolled as a student in the English department, one of the requirements of enrolling in an English department is to successfully pass a specific test. إذا تتذكرون جيتوا قدمت للغة الإنجليزية، كان مطلوب من عندكم أول خطوة أنه تجتازون اختبار. Am I right?
Absolutely right.
Yes. So what is the type and what is the purpose of this test? So the main purpose of this test is
to select the students who is more intelligent in language.
Yes, to select the best candidates who apply to a specific course. This is why do we call it a placement test. هذا الاختبار اللي أديتوه من قدمة اللغة الإنجليزية يسموه placement test. What is the benefit of this test? Is to place or classify students on a suitable course. Another example concerning placement test. When you apply to a specific English language program, there are so many language programs academically conduct in various academic institutions, irrespective of the type of these institutions. Some of them are private and the others are governmental institutions. So the first stage to be admitted on these programs is to conduct a specific English language test. to your scores in this test, you will be classified into 3 levels. For example, beginners, intermediate, and advanced candidates. And a specific course will be allotted to each level. So here we are trying, in this we are trying to classify students according to their background, language knowledge, to be enrolled in a specific level within the course. So this is what is meant by placement. Another important purpose for assessment is diagnosis, where teacher assess students in order to diagnose their weaknesses and strengths with reference to a specific course. So by conducting assessment, I can collect information. These areas of the course are already mastered by the students, and the other areas are still not masters. Not mastered by the students, as the students reflected so many problems in their performance in these aspects. The third purpose is selection, which is important to select as fairly as possible the best candidates for a limited number of places or jobs or for higher education. It seems to me that it is similar to the competitive exam which you will be enrolled in after might be 1 month. Yes, exactly 1 month. So by doing this exam, we can select students for a specific course in higher education. I mean, to pursue your MA studies. So depending on the results of this test, we can select the best candidates to be enrolled in our MA program in English language, mainly in linguistics. Number 4, we conduct assessment for the purpose of evaluating the effectiveness. Effectiveness of what? Of the syllabus, as well as the method of teaching implemented throughout a specific semester. So why do we want to evaluate the effectiveness of the syllabus as well as the method of teaching? In order to make the suitable adjustment, the suitable modification to the syllabus itself and to the method of teaching implemented by the teachers in this syllabus. So we are looking for weaknesses and strengths in a specific syllabus with reference to the effectiveness of the syllabus. If we see that some of the items included in this syllabus are difficult for the students, we can change a little bit in the method of teaching of this syllabus in order to help the students understand these points, which might see difficult for them in its first version of the program. Number 5, we assess to collect information concerning the student's progress. And here is important to conduct assessment periodically throughout the course. For example, I can conduct assessment at the beginning of the course in order to collect information concerning the student's background knowledge. After 1 month, I do assessment again. At the middle of the semester, I can assess what the students have learned and what are the aspects that is still difficult for them to be learned. And at the end of the semester, I can also conduct a test for the purpose of collecting information related to the students' progress throughout a specific semester. Prediction, number 6, which is important to discover students' potential abilities and aptitudes. I mean, to predict students, what the students can do in the future, depending on his or her current language information. For example, I can conduct a test at the beginning of this, at the beginning of a course, which include various aspects of and elements of English language. Then I score the students' exam sheets in this test and analyze their scores in the sub-aspects of the test. For example, the first question is related to grammar, the second is related to phonology, the third is related to speaking, and so on. Depending on the performance of a specific period in this test, for example, the students got 40 out of 50 in grammar. And he got 25 out of 50 in speaking. Another student got 50 out of 50 in speaking and 20 out of 50 in grammar. So the first students who got 40 out of 50 in grammar, I can make a prediction for what he will be at the end of the semester. We are talking at the beginning of the semester. So he got 40 out of 50 in grammar. At the end of the semester, I can predict that the students will be excellent in grammar. But in speaking, not be good. Why? Because his score at the beginning of the semester is 25 out of 50. So this is a prediction. Depending on a specific results of the test with reference, I can predict أتنبأ something related to the same students at the end of the course or at the end of the program as a whole. Okay. Number 7, accreditation, which is important to provide evidence. So the main purpose of assessment is to provide a credit to the students, a certificate to the students that they already completed a specific course successfully and they are now qualified. Qualified is an important concept related to accreditation, that they have the right to practice their profession. Why? Because they successfully passed a specific training language course. So accreditation means certification. We are doing assessment in order to certify that those students are able to practice a specific profession. Why? Because they successfully passed the course relevant to this profession. So these are the main purposes of assessment. Now let us go to the types of tests. We mainly, broadly, we have two types of tests. Achievement at taste, four types of tests. Achievement attainment tests, this is number one. Proficiency test, number two. Aptitude test, number three. And diagnostic test, number four. So if we pay our attention to these four main types of tests, قلنا we do it via the use of a specific tests. Now we are studying the types of tests. What is important here is that these these types of tests should be able to assess some of the previously mentioned purposes of assessment. For example, now let us begin with the first, achievement or attainment tests. I will not give you the definition of this test because it is clear for all of you. As it is named, we design and conduct achievement tests in order to assess students' achievement, between two brackets, performance, at the end of a specific course. Okay, so we are measuring students' achievement. If we go back to the purposes of assessment, we can find that it is related to, so it is beneficial to what purpose of assessment? It is beneficial to achievement test, is beneficial to diagnose students' weakness and performance. It is also related to evaluation. By doing achievement tests, we can evaluate the effectiveness of the syllabus and the method of teaching the syllabus. It is also important to measure the progress of the students. And it is also important to give accreditation to the students. What is important to be highlighted and the types of tests is the benefits of doing each one. So achievement test is important to measure students' achievement and performance in a specific course. Proficiency test is important to measure students' general language abilities. You might see that it is the same like achievement test, but I will proof that it is not the same. Achievement test is related to a specific course. For example, I teach you English grammar in your MA studies. So at the end of the semester, you have to pass a test. So what do we call this test? Is it achievement or proficiency test?
Achievement.
It's okay, you are right. In order to apply for MA program, you have to pass English test. هذا اللي سويتوه بالتعليم المستمر. Is English test. Am I right?
Yes, sir, you are right.
Yes, sir.
You are.
It's okay. What is the type of this test?
Proficiency
Proficiency.
test.
Proficiency test. So how do you differentiate between achievement test and proficiency test?
Okay, sir, we can differentiate achievement test and proficiency test. Achievement test is related to a specific test.
Yes.
While the proficiency test, no, it does not relate to any specific syllabus. And to assess the students' ability for future learning.
Yes, but what are the aspects to be assessed in the proficiency test?
Language skill in general, for language skills.
The language skill and area.
Yes.
So this is the main point. That differentiate between achievement test and the proficiency test. So as I had stated, achievement test is related to a specific syllabus, which is a previous period of time. So you have an items within the syllabus, which you have previously studied in one course, and I am looking to assess your achievement with reference to previously taught items. So this is the achievement test. As for the proficiency test, I am not trying to assess a specific syllabus because there is no syllabus at all. I'm trying to assess your English language knowledge from the 5th primary stage till the end of your bachelor degree. So there is no specific items to be measured. Your background, your English language background knowledge throughout this 10 years or 15 years of studies. Is it okay now? This is the main difference between the two. Now, aptitude test. What is meant by aptitude? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes, Doctor. Can you repeat your question, please?
Yes, yes. What is meant by aptitude test?
Aptitude.
So aptitude test, now go to the aptitude test, please, student. Is designed to measure the student's probable performance in a foreign language which he has not started to learn. Is it clear? So I'm trying to make at the beginning of the semester, what they goal is designed to measure the students' probable performance in a foreign language, which he has not started to learn. So, depending on the results of this test, I can take an idea concerning what the students will be able to do with the language after the completion of a specific language course. But this prediction will be made before the semester. So how can I do this? It's like a prediction. Aptitude tests generally seek to predict the students' strengths and weakness in learning foreign language by measuring performance in artificial language, depending on what? Depending on many factors, such as
intelligence,
intelligence,
motivation, والage
motivation,
والmemory.
age, and memory. So the type of test to be conducted to be called aptitude tests should include language elements and skills that reflect what? That reflect his current intelligence level in English language, his motivation level to learn English language, as well as his age and his ability in recurring information, which is memory. Depending on the results of these tests, I can predict that this student is able to master, for example, speaking skill, writing skill, grammar, pronunciation, and so on. So this is what is meant by aptitude test. Diagnostic test is overtly mentioned in the purposes of test, which aims at measuring students' weakness point and strengths at the same time. But I have a question here. Why do we need to make diagnostic tests? Why should I collect information concerning the students' strengths and weaknesses? شنو الفائدة? What's the benefit?
Excuse me, doctor. To show the skills of the students, how do we achieve the materials or not to achieve?
Yes, why do we need to collect information concerning these aspects of performance?
Also to know how the teacher can reach the materials to the students.
Which type of materials should be reached by the teacher?
Sorry. Question by ask them question about something.
You already stated that the
syllabus.
teacher need to reach specific materials.
Yes.
Why do we need to reach specific these materials? Sorry.
Find out wrong and the weakness of the students as a whole.
We need to reach the materials in which the students experience difficulty in understanding them. Okay? And this is
Yes.
not When I make a diagnostic test, I'm classifying the previously taught materials into two classifications. The first one is the material the students reflecting their full understanding of them. And the second is the material in which the students are still not able to understand them. So the first part, which is the material completely understood by the students, the mission is done, but I need to create additional practice exercises so as to enable the students to keep it tracked with these materials as an extra practice exercises. And in the second pillar, which is students' weaknesses, I will create an extra practice exercises in order to enable the students overcome their weaknesses and difficulties and understand them. اوكي فانا اسوي الاختبارات التشخيصيه حتى اشخص نقاط القوه من اجل تعزيزها بتمارين اخرى، والغرض الثاني حتى اشخص نقاط الضعف حتى اعالج by creating or by giving them extra learning opportunities and exercises that help them understand these items and continue practicing them. Now, point 23, how do we assess? We have 5 modes of assessment. وهو يعني كيف. So how do we assess? We assess formally and informally, formatively and summatively, continuously and terminally, internally and externally. We assess coursework and examination. I will go through these items quickly. We have no time. You can return. I will give you the main idea that differentiate between each pair of these modes of assessment and explain each pair of each part of the pair, and you can go in depth in the in your book. So formal and informal. Formal is any type of test conducted by the teacher formally inside the classroom. For example, the monthly test, the end of year test, the mid of the semester test are examples of formal tests. Informal tests are the type of tests which are conducted informally inside and outside the classroom. Might be conducted outside the classroom. For example, when I create a discussion activity inside the classroom, it is understood by the students as a normal discussion, but actually in reality it is informal. When I make a quick quiz, sudden quiz, it is informal test. So now you have two types of two modes of test, formal and informal. Formative and summative assessment. Formative derived from the base verb form, whereas summative is derived from the base form of the verb sum. form يعني بنائي وسم يعني نهائي. وعادة من نقول بنائي هو أي عملية بناء تتكون من it consists of a group of states. So teaching and learning, when assessed formatively, should be conducted periodically at the end of each stage of learning or at the end of a specific period of time throughout the semester. For example, for example, at the beginning of the semester, I can conduct a test. At the middle of the semester and at the end of the semester, I can also conduct a test. So what do we call it? It is called formative assessment. Summative assessment is the type of test which is conducted at the end of the semester only. So we can easily differentiate between summative and formative assessment based on the time of conducting a test. If we conduct it periodically, we can say that this is formative assessment. If we semester, we can say that it is summative assessment. Continuous and terminal is the same. Continuous is the same, is similar to formative, and terminal is similar to summative. Can also differentiate between the two depending on the time of conducting the test. External versus external assessment. So how do we differentiate between the two? Yes, students, please. Hello?
Yes, Doctor.
How do we differentiate between internal assessment and external?
Internal is conducted by an organization.
Yes?
اوكي دكتور، هو الانترنر اللي يكون يعني شلون داخل المدرسة اللي يقوم المدرس اللي على الطالب نفسه، بس الاكسترنال راح يكون يعني تكون لجنة خارجية اللي هي مثل امتحانات العام يعني على
Okay, can you give me an examples concerning the two?
The monthly exams are internal. While TOEFL exam as example of external.
So, okay. So any test, so it seems to me that the best way to differentiate between the two should be based on the designers of this test. So if it is designed by the teacher of the first type, so it is internal in the sense that it is designed by someone within the staff inside the school. So it is designed by someone within the staff, within the teaching staff of English language. Okay? So
Yes.
if it is designed by me as a teacher of English language or by my colleagues, for example, Dr. Juma or Dr. Hudayfa, it is still internal. But when the test is designed by other authoritative person outside the educational institution in a teamwork, this means that it is external assessment. مثال, a clear example of these two types. انتم ما لحقتوا على الامتحان الوزاري بالكليه. A test of a grammar designed by the teacher of English language inside the English department is external assessment. But when the test of a grammar is designed by a team of teachers outside the English department, even if it is conducted by a team of experts in another department, in another university. So this case, we call it external examination. مثال آخر, another example, students, is the English language test. The sixth preparatory. بالامتحان الوزاري مال السادس اي اختبار يسويه المدرس من بدايه السنه الى نهايه السنه هذا internal assessment. لكن الامتحان الوزاري شو يسموه؟
External.
external. Why? Because it is not designed by the teacher himself. It is designed by a committee that includes another language teachers outside the school building. Okay, now let us go to the last pair, which is called coursework versus examination. How do we differentiate between them? Yes, who can differentiate between this pair of assessment? Yes? Yes, students? How do you differentiate between examination and coursework?
Yes, sir. Examination are either conducted by teachers in a given school or contracted and administered by the Ministry of Education. Coursework is the work completed by the students under the supervision of
So,
their teacher.
so what is the type of this work?
The type of this, for example, coursework يعني مثلا نقول الواجب البيتي أو العمل الميداني الموجود
For
بإشراف
example,
المدرسين نفسهم.
I can ask the students to prepare a report.
Yes,
My supervision,
yes.
okay, in order to be
This is a coursework.
coursework.
Yes,
Examination is the normal type of test.
yes.
حتى أقرب لكم الفكرة, in order to clarify the idea for you, I will give you an example concerning what happened in the last year, specifically in the second semester of the last year. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, we cannot get access to our students for one semester. So but we still able to assess our students' performance. How? By giving them, we didn't make monthly exam in order to collect idea concerning, in order to provide students with their scores. And instead, we based our assessment on coursework activities. We gave them various assignments. To me, I asked them to do 8 assignments, as well as a report at the end of the course. So these assignments, as well as the report or coursework material, that can be utilized as a substitute to normal exams. Okay. في الفصل الدراسي الماضي احنا ما سوينا امتحانات شهريه، سوينا بمكانها assignment، لان ما كان اكو احد يقدر يوصل الجامعه. الاسايمنت هاي تعتبر كورس وير، اعتمدنا عليها في اعداد درجات السعي. ماشي طلاب؟ So the difference between the two exam which the students should pass in order to get marks that qualify them to upgrade to the final exam. In contrary, coursework or any activity, any field work that the students should successfully perform in order to get scores with reference to a specific course. Okay. This is the difference between examination and coursework as modes of assessment. Now let us go to what do we assess? As an English language teacher, this question is so easy to be answered. What do we assess? We assess, I can simply tell you that when we assess English language, we are assessing the various language skills and areas. وهنا عندكم we have so many examples. For example, listening comprehension, speaking ability, reading comprehension, writing ability, phonology, grammar, vocabulary, and so on. So all of these are considered language areas and skills. When do we assess? شنو هو وقت إجراء الامتحان؟ Test can be classified into 3 types, depending on the time, or assessment can be classified into 3 types, depending on the time of conducting the assessment. So it can be terminal or final, or final, in the sense that it should be conducted at the end of the program, at the end of the course, or at the end of the academic year. Okay? Periodic assessment measure level of achievement reached at a predetermined interval throughout the course. So periodic assessment is important to collect ideas concerning the student's level of achievement in a specific time interval throughout the course. The last one is continuous assessment, which is important to have a continuous upgrading or judgment about the student's performance throughout the course. Okay, so these are the main types of tests according to their time. This is all the aspects related to the first chapter of the book. Now let us go to the second chapter related to approaches to language assessment. We mainly have 4 approaches of language assessment. These are the essay translation approach, the structural approach, the integrative approach, and the last one is the communicative approach. Each one of these approaches are in harmony with a specific teaching method. This is an important idea to be understood by you. So the essay translation approach is in harmony with the grammar translation approach of teaching English language. So what do we mean by saying that it is in harmony with the grammar translation approach of teaching English language? This means that this assessment approach should be able to test whether the students as well as the teacher are able to achieve the main goals of teaching and learning of English language according to the essay translation approach as a method of teaching, not as a method of assessment. So it is called the pre-scientific stage of language because no special skill in testing is required, and also there is a lack of concern for objectivity and for test reliability.
عفوا دكتور هالنقطة ما فهمتها.
It's okay. It is called the pre-scientific approach of language testing. Why? Because the method of assessment is conducted arbitrarily. ليش سموها pre-scientific stage? There is no scientific rule that govern the process of assessment. Nor.
Yes, doctor. Yes.
It is called a pre-scientific stage because there are no rules that govern the process of assessment. When I conduct any type of assessment, there should be a specific rule that govern our design of tests. So it is not testing in reality is not merely a process of writing specific items for testing grammar, for example, but rather there should be these items should have a specific qualification that reflect the objectivity of these items, the reliability of these items, as well as the validity of these items with reference to the purpose of doing of writing these items. فعلى سبيل المثال عندما أسوي اختبار للنحو, when I design a test for testing students' grammar, I should put in my consideration certain features to be included in this item. This item should be valid for testing grammar only based on its content. This item should be reliable in the sense that it is consistent over time when it is conducted many times by the teacher. Okay, so all of these rules and regulations are completely absent according to the essay translation approach. احنا نقولها بالعامية نور وباقي الطلاب, نقولها بالعامية يسوي امتحان على البركة. يعني شنو على البركة؟ يعني ماكو لا قوانين تحكم هاي الفقرة, ولا هو مشتغل هاي الفقرات بطريقة علمية بحيث هي فعلا مصممة لقياس النحو, ولا هذه الفقرات هي بها إجابة موحدة, ولا هاي الفقرات هي يعني قابلة أن تعطي ثبات في إجابة الطالب في حالة لو أعيد الامتحان مرة أخرى بنفس الفقرات تحت نفس الظروف. فهاي كلها غايبة بالاختبار مال مال essay translation approach. So, what is important is that these items can test the goals of teaching and learning English according to the grammar translation approach. يعني هو المدرس شنو مخلي بباله؟ انه اهم شيء انا هدف نظر تدريسي للغه الانجليزيه في ضوء الجرامر ترانسليشن ابروتش هو شنو قلنا سبقا احنا؟ انه الطالب يقدر يكتب ويقدر يستوعب ما يقرا ومضبوط بالنحو ومضبوط بالترجمه. فهنا في الايساي ترانسليشن ابروتش كطريقه as an assessment approach هو المهم انه يحصل معلومات من الطلاب تعكس فهمهم او قابليتهم للترجمه والقراءه والاستيعاب والى اخره. لكن من نجي نتفحص هاي الفقرات مال الاختبار هي ما مبنيه بصوره علميه رصينه بحيث فعلا تحقق هذه الاهداف. لذلك this is why do we call it the pre-scientific stage of language testing. Why? Because there is no specific rules that reflect the objectivity, validity, and reliability of these items. Okay? How? These tests are such as giving a title to the students in order to write about it, giving a text to the students in order to translate it from one language to another, giving a specific sentences to the students in order to analyze them with reference to some points of grammar, and so on. So this is all the assessment techniques designed and followed by the teacher according to the essay translation approach. And this is why do we call it a pre-scientific approach. As for the second approach, which is called structural approach, which is important to the direct method and audiolingual method, unlike the previous method, this method is called the scientific approach. Why do we call it scientific approach? Because specific assessment rules and the procedures and techniques are created by the advocator. Assessment approach to be followed by the teacher for the purpose of attaining the objectivity, validity, and reliability features of the test. So it is called scientific approach. This approach is mainly characterized by the view that testing can be objective. شوفوا نفس اللي قلت لكم اياه. Testing can be objective, precise, reliable, and scientific. So this is why do we call it scientific approach. In addition to that, the test should be characterized by its objectivity. And objectivity means, objective test means that the test should be centered in a specific language area that should be tested by this test. And its scoring should also be objective. Objective يعني أما يكون صح وأما يكون خطأ، وبالنتيجة تصحيحه يا أما يكون درجة كاملة وأما يكون صفر على الدرجة. بالمناسبة ترى راح يكون نافس. يعني راح تكون أغلبية الفقرات تكون of multiple choice items, or it might be true false item, or it might be completion items. جوابي اما يكون صح وياخذ الطالب درجة كاملة، واما يكون إجابة خاطئة وياخذ الطالب no mark or 0 mark. على العموم. So the main feature of objective test is that they are liable to be processed statistically by doing statistical procedures and formula. So this means that the structural approach, as it is named, it is centered. I mean, this approach is centered on the structural aspects of language, media grammar. So they should be analytical assessment, so should be analytical in nature. And again, شنو analytical? طلاب, please just pay me your attention to this point. Because if you understand this point, you will be able to understand the following point and the integrative approach easily. So tell me now, can you hear me, please?
Yes, doctor, we hear you.
Yes, doctor.
It's okay. So analytical assessment is discrete point in nature. And again, discrete point in nature يعني متقطع في اللغة العربية. Discrete point approach means that each question in the test should be designed one language area or one language skill only. For example, يجوز ما فهمته، راح أعطيكم مثال. You as English language teacher, we used to design English language test periodically. تسووها مرارا وتكرارا في خلال السنة الدراسية. وحتى اللي انتم مو مدرسين، جماعة الآداب، اكو طلاب من الآداب مو حاضرين اليوم؟ نعم. بالآداب ما درسوا يعني بسبب يعني due to their field of study they are not required to study teaching method or assessment because they are not required they are not expected according to the Department of English and the College of Arts, they are not expected to be teachers of English language. فما درسوا هاي المسائل. لكن راح ارجعكم حتى يكون مثالنا واسع، راح ارجعكم على مرحله الاعداديه، السادس الاعدادي. The ministerial exam of the sixth preparatory stage include, for example, 5 to 7 questions. Am I right?
Yes, doctor.
So each question is designed to assess a specific language area or a specific language skill within the English language. Again, am I right?
Yes, sir, you are right.
It's okay because you already confirm my claim. Can you tell me it's assessed by the sixth preparatory ministerial exam? شنو هي الجوانب اللغوية أو بصورة أوضح شنو كانت أسئلة السادس؟ هاي الست أسئلة أو 7 أسئلة ماذا؟ السؤال الأول دقيقة أيوة.
Reading comprehension.
خلينا نبدأ من السؤال الأول. السؤال الأول شنو كان يقول؟ شنو؟ نعم. نعم.
Reading comprehension.
So the first question is about reading comprehension.
Yes.
Like قلنا about reading comprehension. So it assesses students reading comprehension ability. اكو شيء وياها بهذا السؤال لو فقط هذا؟
No, just reading.
So just reading comprehension. Let us go to the second question.
Grammar structure.
Grammar structure.
Yes.
فالسؤال كامل هو مصمم على قياس قابلية الطالب على الجرامر. السؤال الثالث.
Textbook question.
Sorry.
Textbook question.
Didn't get it. Hayat.
Doctor, multiple choices.
Yes, multiple choice or a true false or completion. But about
Matching.
what?
Vocabulary test.
Vocabulary test.
Vocabulary, yes.
السؤال الرابع.
Spelling test.
Writing.
writing.
missing word.
Yes. السؤال الخامس
literature.
literature. السؤال السادس
Composition, writing composition.
قلناها الرايتنج. pronunciation عن الأصوات.
دكتور يعني هذا الفقرة لغت يعني من تحدثت الكتب، فما
على العموم
ما
يعني
تجي هيك
احنا
نمط
نعطي
سؤال
أمثلة.
اللغة من زمان قبل 10 سنين.
أعرف احنا نعطي أمثلة.
نعم دكتور. اوكي.
لأن هي هاي الطريقة كانت تستخدم قبل 10 سنين.
نعم دكتور.
مو منام؟
يس دكتور منال.
وبما أنه أنا درست على المنهج مال قبل 10 سنين، ودا ندرس على الطريقة هاي مال قبل 10 سنين، انطوني حق احكي مال قبل 10 سنين.
اوكي دكتور. ازيلك.
هي فعلا هي structural approach. انا قلت لكم هي مو قبل 10 سنين، هي قبل 10 سنين راحت.
نعم.
هي مستخدمه من السبعينات.
صح.
على العموم فهسه هذا الاختبار اللي احنا سولفنا عنه. يعني when we examine the various questions within this test, we can conclude that each question is designed to test a specific language skill or language area and not something else. Okay?
اوكي.
لذلك هو يسموه discrete point approach or analytical assessment. Based on this test, the teacher will be able to assess students' English language abilities
individually.
analytically. يعني بالتفصيل. أنا أعرف هذا الطالب إنه أخذ كذا بالنحو، أخذ كذا بالفوكابولري، أخذ كذا بالرايتنج، أخذ كذا بالكذا كذا إلى آخره. ماشي؟ هذا يسموه analytical assessment, which is a term firmly associated with structural approach of language assessment. We already gave an example concerning it. Now let us move to the integrative approach. طلاب هاي ترى أنا دا أتكتك بيها شوي شوي، لأن هاي راح تكون انطلاقة للفصول من الخامس فما فوق. يعني in order to save time and effort, when we come across chapter above, we will talk only about the main goals for doing, for example, language use, for assessing language use and usage. We will talk about the main concern related to reading comprehension test. We will talk about the main concerns related to vocabulary test and so on. هنا نمشي ببطء على مود تستوعبون، لأن هي الأساس الديج. على العموم the integrative approach is quite the analytical approach. ذاك تحليلي وتفصيلي. هذا الانتجراتيف approach هو شنو؟ هو تكاملي أو كلي. ماشي؟ Can you hear me please?
Yes دكتور.
So this approach involves the testing of language in context and is concerned with meaning and the total communicative effect of discourse. بعدين قايل اللي هو هذا المهم. It is the exact reverse of analytical assessment since بالضبط هو عكس الاناليتيكال assessment لأنه it attempts to assess several elements and perhaps skill at the same time. هو هذا رباط السالفة مالتنا. So the structural approach attempts to assess one language skill or area separately. Okay? هنا it attempts to assess the overall language elements and the skills as a whole or at the same time. So who can give me an example؟ جماعة التربية والمعارف أيضا دارس. Who can give me an example concerning the test which is based on integrative approach؟ من يقدر يعطيني مثال؟
دكتور missing word. When you have a question full of missing words and ask the student.
منار خريجة شنو؟
تربية دكتور.
تربية. منار missing word هو كلام صحيح لكن
Yes.
شلون أنا أصمم الاختبار بحيث يكون فيه missing word؟
دكتور يعني we have a question in class test. I give them a word or an example and ask them to do the same thing, but we have some differences in details. For example, when I give them the past of the verb, play as it should be played, I ask them another verb, but in different way, a regular verb, if they understand it.
Should be given in a form of sentences.
Yes, in the form of a passage.
Pardon,
Am I right?
Pardon, doctor, I don't hear you.
Maybe we give the student following brackets and there are several words down in order and asking them to fulfill the gaps according to the meaning of the passage.
It's the same thing.
So what is meant by closed testing procedure?
Yeah.
What is meant by closed testing procedure?
يعني دكتور هو راح يطلعون الصح من الخطأ.
لا.
Answer a question according to the meaning.
لا أنا أريد what is meant by closed testing procedure.
دكتور هو الفوكابولري and شغلات الفوكابولري and grammar تجي مثلا.
أعرف.
نعم ما فهمت السؤال لحد هسه.
هي who can define closed testing procedure?
تعرف.
Excuse me, Doctor.
Yes.
As deals with example of integrative test, I think dealing with dictation. I think deals with the dictation, which again involves testing, listening, comprehension, spelling. Anything requires knowledge of grammar and vocabulary, I think.
بعد ما وصلت.
Close testing means reflects the best feature of the two approaches mentioned above, which is the analytical and the integrative one. This means that where I remove at regular intervals.
Just tell me one aspect related to the closed testing procedure. Is it as a group of sentences or a text?
It's a text. So
Yes.
عفوا دكتور، مثل هسه الامتحان التنافسي مالتنا انه بعدة تكسات راح ندخل امتحان واحد.
it's about the software
لا
and
لا.
to
Yes, Ayad.
it's actually a text examination, you can call it.
So
Am I right?
yes, it is a text, but we are dealing with assessment. So how do we design this text in a form of tests?
We designed it with missing words, and the
With
student
missing words.
and the
How
student
do we
are
miss
asked
these words? How do we
according
miss
to
these words?
the meaning and grammatical.
So what will be tested if we miss certain words from this text?
Vocabulary.
Vocab meaning.
Vocabulary only,
Grammar and overall meaning.
overall
Meaning.
language areas. Am I right?
There you are totally right.
It's okay. Just pay me attention, please, students. A closed testing procedure is a text in which every end، وهاي الافري اند راح يغدر بينا التعليم الالكتروني، لان المفروض اكتب لكم اياها على السبوره بس ماكو سبوره. In which every nth word should be deleted.
Yes, sir.
Please
We
mute
hear
your phone. طلاب عندنا نوعين من الكلوز تيستنج بروسيجر. عندنا النوع الاول اللي هو التقليدي، والنوع الاول اللي هو يسموه الموديفايد كلوز تيستنج بروسيجر، وهو الاهم طلاب. وهسه اشرح لكم الفرق بين الاثنين. النورمال كلوز تيستنج بروسيجر هو عباره عن نص متكامل، ويجي المدرس، تسمعون؟
Yes, doctor.
يجي المدرس، the teacher deletes certain words from the text depending on the goal of this test. فمثلا هو يريد يقيس النحو فقط، فيروح على الكلمات اللي هي الافعال او الافعال المساعده او المفعول به او الفاعل او حروف الجر الى اخره، يمسحها ويخلي بمكانها فراغ وينطيها للطلاب حتى يقول لهم complete the blanks and the text. ماشي طلاب؟
Yes, doctor.
بهالحاله هو راح يشيل فقط المسائل النحويه. فايش راح يصير الاختبار؟ راح يصير الاختبار على شنو؟
جرامر.
grammar in context. grammar in context.
Yes.
في سياق للكلمة المحذوفة. مثلا هو يريد يصمم عن الفوكابولاري، فراح يشيل فقط المفردات، وبهالحالة أيضا راح يقيس he will assess students vocabulary in context فقط. صح؟
صح.
Yes, doctor.
لكن احنا اللي يهمنا حسب الانتجراتيف ابروتش نقول all اللي قلناه سابقا all language areas and skills will be tested integratively by using closed testing procedure. فهنا اللي راح يفيدنا اللي هو قلت لكم in which every nth word، هاي ال nth word طلاب هي NTH which deals with the systematic deletion of words from the text, from the original text. هذا يسموه modified testing procedure. هاي ال nth word يعني systematic deletion. شلون systematic deletion؟ يعني اجي اني التكست هذا يتكون من 8 سطور مثلا، السطرين الاوليه لازم ما احذف من عندها. ليش؟ على مود الطالب، انطيه فرصه للطالب يعني يستوعب فكره النص. اذا اريد احذف منها ما راح يستوعب فكره النص، صح؟
Doctor.
فالجملتين الاوليه should be given completely. when we arrive to the third line I will make systematic deletion. فأجي على السطر الثالث أو الجملة الثالثة، راح أجي أنا قلت لكم nth word every nth word should be deleted. راح أجي أقول إنه أنا أحذف كل 5 كلمات أحذف السادسة، فأجي أحسب من النقطة هاي 5 كلمات السادسة irrespective of the nature of this word، بغض النظر عن نوعها أو طبيعتها، أحذفها أخلي بمكانها فراغ. ورا الفراغ أحسب إنه 5 كلمات من أوصل السادسة أشيلها للسادسة. ورا الفراغ الثاني أيضا أحسب 5 كلمات من أوصل السادسة أشيلها للسادسة إلى أن أكمل النص. هذا شيء يسموه systematic deletion.
العفو دكتور، يعني هي الطريقتين تقريبا شابهت، يعني النورمال والموديفيكيتد، يعني شنو الفرق؟ بس انه الثاني كلمات، يعني انا ما فهمت زين يعني.
ايه تحسبين عدد الكلمات منار. وهسه اقول لك شنو الفائده بين الاثنين.
نعم ان شاء الله. شكرا.
هذاك انا من راح احذف كلمات بدون systematic deletion، هذاك ربما اروح على الجوانب النحويه فقط اشيلها من التكست، اروح على الفوكابولاري اشيلها من التكست. ماشي؟
يس دكتور.
بس
ثاني
بالسيستماتيك ديليشن انا راح اعتمد هاي الاليه، كل 5 كلمات اشيل السادسه. ربما هاي السادسه راح تكون ستودنتس فوكابولاري نولج، صح لو لا؟
نعم.
بعد الفراغ راح تكون السادسه عن النحو، ربما تكون فعل مساعد او فعل رئيسي. هاي شنو راح تكون عن الجرامر. ماشي؟ وهكذا.
نعم. يس دكتور ثانك يو.
وهاي اكو نقطه مهمه ايضا، فيها كل ما يزيد عدد الكلمات، العفو، كل ما يقل عدد الكلمات اللي يسبق الفراغ أو الكلمة المحذوفة راح يكون الاختبار أصعب. فإذا احنا نريد نصعبه نخلي كل 3 كلمات الرابعة تحذف، أو كل 4 كلمات الخامسة تحذف. إذا نريد نسهله نخلي كل 6 كلمات السابعة تحذف، وهكذا. المهم شنو راح يطلع عندنا حصيلة؟ راح يطلع عندنا حصيلة إنه all language areas and the skills will be tested integratively in one question only. هاي حصيلة modified version of closed testing procedure. ماشي طلاب؟
Yes, doctor.
And the most important things is that all language areas and skills that will be assessed in their context. والcontext هو شنو؟ هو التكست as a whole. The text should include a specific situation. This is why I told you that the test will be in context. So this is a clear example concerning the integrative approach of testing English language skills and elements. Now let us go to the communicative approach. The communicative tests are concerned primarily with assessing real communication. The test should indicate how well a student can function in the target language. Consequently, the task should relate to real-life situation with emphasis on authentic material. Here we need to talk about, if you recall your information concerning what have been presented in methodology. في الأسبوع الأول من الدورة مالتنا we came across language use and language usage. Have you remember it? Hello?
Unfortunately, sir, I haven't been there.
Yes, you are absent at that time. So I will make a comparison between the two terms. Language use is concerned with what? With how people utilize the language in order to convey a specific function of the language. Whereas language usage is related with what? With the former structures and pattern of language. In another word, language use is related with knowledge of language, and language usage is related with knowledge about the language. So when I emphasize on grammar rules, for example, on vocabularies and on punctuation marks and so on, I'm trying to teach students about specific knowledge about the language, not about how to use grammar or how to use vocabularies in order to convey specific function in English language. language use تعني كيف يستخدم الطالب اللغة الإنجليزية للتعبير عن وظائف محددة باستخدام اللغة. والمصطلح الثاني اللي هي language usage، هي كيف مثلا كيف يقدم الطالب أو كيف يكتب الطالب جملة ذات معنى مضبوط وبنحو سليم. الجانب
يعني معرفته
الثاني
بالقواعد، يعني نقدر نقول
usage.
أي.
فأنا من أدرس اللانجوج يوسج الطالب راح يعرف أن الجملة حتى تكون سليمة لازم تكون هاي تبدي فعل وتتبع بفعل وتتبع بكذا وبكذا وبكذا إلى نهاية إلى آخره. هذا الطالب راح يتعلم صياغة جملة صحيحة وتعطي معنى صحيح، لكن من تقول له how do you invite your friend to your birthday party، ايش راح يفكر؟ راح يقعد يفكر بالجملة هي فاعل وفعل وكذا وكذا وكذا، وراح يروح يدور في خزينة المفردات شنو معنى كلمة دعوة، شنو معنى كلمة بارتي، شنو معنى كلمة العفو، شنو معنى كلمة حفلة، شنو معنى كلمة عيد ميلاد. فشنو راح يصير بيها؟ راح يصير بيها hesitation and pauses اللي هي against fluency level. You will seek accuracy more than fluency. Okay? Whereas in language use, the students will be able to produce the invitation sentence, order, and structure more fluently than when we teach them language usage. على العموم، this is the main tenet of communicative approach of language assessment. احنا من قلنا بالcommunicative approach of language teaching قلنا fluency is more important than language fluency is more important than language accuracy. So following the same approach of assessment, be a communicative approach of language assessment, our concern will be the same, which is fluency is more important than accuracy. So here we can provide students with a specific situation for production, not for recognition. For example, I can ask him by saying invite your friends to a specific occasion. So the students now is free to produce the certain specific certain invitation utterance. You can produce an utterance to invite as a friend for birthday party, to marriage party, to wedding party, and so on. The most important thing is that by responding to this question, you will be able to produce the a specific utterance that suit the type of the part. Okay, the same for the others. The same for the others functions, language function. يعني هي مو شرط انه تكون invitation. ربما يكون introduce yourself to your friend, introduce your teacher to your parents, and so on. So here the consent is in fluency, not in accuracy and vocabulary memorization, but rather in the function of using the language, and the use of language, structure, and vocabularies for the purpose, هي هنا المعمرة for the purpose of covering a specific language utterance or a specific language function. This is the main concept of communicative approach of language assessment. Now let us move to chapter 3, which is characteristics of assessment. احنا طلاب, if you remember, in the grammar translation approach of language assessment, we called it pre-scientific stage of assessment. Why? As I told you, because the test is lacking its main features, which are validity, reliability, and objectivity and practicality. لذلك, this is why do we call it a pre-scientific approach. So any scientific approach should be valid, reliable, and practical. Now let us go through these three important concepts. طلاب, هاي المهم تفهمون تعاريفها يعني الرئيسية، لأن بيها كثير تفرعات، فأنت خلوا اهتمامكم على التعاريف الرئيسية. Number one, validity means that if we are attempting to test students' grammar ability, the test is valid if it is really designed to measure students' grammar ability and not something else. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, doctor.
When I design a test to measure vocabularies, students' vocabulary knowledge, and I ask them to do a grammar test, is it valid or not?
Pardon, sir. Can you repeat the question, please?
If I would like to test the vocabulary knowledge, and I ask them to do a test where it's items about grammar, is it valid or not?
If it is about
No.
grammar, yes.
Sorry?
It is valid if it's
Valid?
yes. If it is
No.
about grammar.
Not valid, doctor.
Sorry?
Not valid.
Why?
Because you need your exam about grammar, but I studied vocabulary.
Exactly. So in order to be valid, the test that aims to test grammar should include items about grammar only and not something else. When I test students' vocabulary knowledge, the test should include items that measure vocabulary knowledge and not something else. Okay? Can you hear me, please?
Yes,
Yes,
sir, we
doctor.
hear.
Yes, doctor.
فأياد أنا من
Yes,
أصمم
sir.
اختبار من أجل معرفة قابلية الطالب النحوية. الاختبار لازم يكون عن النحو وليس عن شيء آخر مثل
I told
الفوكابولري
you.
أو السبيكينج أو الرايتنج.
Yes, I mentioned that. I told you that it is valid if the items are about the grammar.
Yes, it is valid if the items about the grammar, and valid vocabulary test if it's items about vocabulary, and so on.
Yes, sir. They are related items.
Yes, so this is what is main validity. It is literally defined in your book that validity is the degree to which a test measure what is supposed to measure. So if the test is supposed to measure vocabulary knowledge, the test items should include items about vocabularies and so on. Otherwise, it will be not valid.
Not valid.
Reliability means the consistency and the stability of the test scores if it is conducted more than one time. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, doctor.
Yes.
For example,
Yes, doctor.
I give you a test today, and Ayad got, for example, 50 marks in this test. I will ask Ayad to do the same test after 1 month. It is supposed that Ayad approximately got the same mark. If the same test is given to him. فواحدة من صفات الاختبار الجيد هو يكون reliable، يعني ثابت من حيث النتائج. فأنا إذا أعطيتكم اليوم اختبار جدتي منار وشيماء وأياد، أياد أخذ 50، منار أخذت 60، شيماء أخذت 70. جبت نفس الاختبار ورا شهر انطيته لأياد ومنار وشيماء، لازم تكون درجاتهم متقاربة، لأن هو نفس الاختبار وما تغير شيء خلال هذا الشهر، ولا صار شيء جديد بهذا الشهر، ماكو لا درسنا شيء جديد أو شيء، فقط هو لأغراض يعني نعرف ثبات الاختبار. فاحنا ما نقول يجيب نفس الدرجة أياد، بدل 50 مثلا يجيب 52 أو 49. تجي منار بدل ما تجيب 60 تجيب 59 58 61، وهكذا بالنسبة للطالبة الثالثة. So if the results of the test are to some extent stable and consistent in terms of its scores, this means that the test is reliable. Okay? Otherwise, cannot be considered reliable, and it cannot be dependable. due to the reliability defect. Practicality is the third important feature of or characteristics of language tests, which deals with two important terms: economy and ease. So I can say that the test is practical if it is economic. Economic in the sense that it doesn't need much money, effort, and time in its administration. For ease or easiness, it means the degree of difficulty experienced by whom? By the testees or by the tester? Of course, by the test designers or tester in the administration and the scoring of the test. For example, we have an example here related to oral test. For example, an oral test that demands the use of a tape recorder is not practical if it has to be administered to thousands of students. Okay? Why it is not practical? Because it costs much time, money, and efforts paid by the administrator of the test himself. But a group discussion, when I ask students to discuss a specific issue in groups, it will be more practical than tape recording individual students at a time. Why? Because it doesn't need much cost, time, money, and efforts from the test. So these are the important characteristics of conducting a test: validity, reliability, and practicality. Now let us go to chapter 4, techniques of assessment. Can you hear me please?
Yes, Doctor.
Yes.
طلاب هسه راح نبدي شوي ننتقل سطحيا. احنا قلنا لكم الثلاث فصول الاوليه بها مسائل نظريه كثيره، فشوي دقدقنا بها بالشرح. للفصل الرابع فما فوق هو كله عملي. فانا راح اشرح لكم الجانب النظري وهي الفكره العامه اللي تمكنكم من استيعاب المفاهيم، ونعطيكم مثال والباقي ترجعوا له للكتاب، لان اكو بيه تفاصيل كثيره وهي كلها تعرفوها انتم بالمناسبه ومارين بها، لكن ربما تكونون غافلين عنها، خاصه جماعه الاداب او المدرسين اللي خريجين كليات التربيه، لكن بعدهم ما معينين. هسه يجوز المدرسين بسهوله راح يفهمونها لان هم خايضين هاي التجربه العمليه، خايضين هذه التجربه بصوره عمليه في مدارسهم. على العموم، techniques of assessment, we mainly have three important types of assessment. طبعا based on what? Based on the test design. وفقا إلى تصميم فقرات الاختبار. So these 3 types are: number 1, objective items, or the so-called closed response items. Number 2, semi-objective questions. And number 3, which is subjective or free response questions. هذه معانيها بالعربية طلاب. يعني أنا راح أعطيكم فقط تعريف ومثال. بالنسبة للمادة اللي تحتاجوها النظرية، أنا كاتب لكم إياها بالملخص هذا، ومنشر لكم إياها بالأصفر. هي سهلة الفهم. ونعطيكم أيضا مثال عن كل نوع من هذه الأنواع الثلاثة. وهذا المثال اللي نعطيه هو one techniques among the various techniques of each type of the 3 types of assessments. راح نبدأ بالجزء الأول objective items or closed response. Objective items is the type of item which is asked in such a way that there is only one correct answer in the item. So this means that the students recognition is more important than production. يعني قابلية الطالب على التمييز هي أكثر أهمية من قابلية الطالب على الإنتاج. إنتاج شنو؟ Language production, where the students produce a specific utterance. In addition, there is only one correct answer to be recognized by the students and encircled by the students in order to get a full mark. Another important feature of objective item is that the student's score is also affected. There is no in-between marks, in the sense that the students can either get full mark or 0 mark. تفهمون طلاب ايش دا اقوله لو؟
Yes, doctor, we understand what you say.
Another important thing is that an objective item, only one language area can be tested in a separate item. فأنا من أصمم الاختبار اللي هو objective item، هناك شغلة واحدة أنا مركز عليه، يا أما تكون vocabulary أو grammar أو punctuation mark أو mechanisms of writing and إلى آخره. فهنا it is called objective item. This is also an important point in the sense that its scoring is objective in nature and not subjective. Objective in nature means that the scoring is not liable to the scorer's personal bias. تعرفوها هاي شنو؟
Unfortunately, no, sir.
The scorer's personal bias.
excuse me sir بس
هذا
دكتور
نعم.
العفو، ماذا ألحق وياكم؟ ما عرفت وين واصلين.
احنا وصلنا شيماء،
نعم.
وصلنا شابتر 4 اول صفحه بالاوبجكتيف ايتمز نمبر 1.
ثانك يو فيري ماتش.
اوكي. فقلنا شيماء، قلنا the scoring of objective items, or it is called the objective item since its scoring is not affected by the scorer personal bias. Personal bias هو التحيز. يعني تعرفون شنو التحيز؟ مايك سكويز. التحيز مثلا انتم راح تمتحنون الامتحان التنافسي. الامتحان التنافسي بسؤال multiple choice. multiple choice او صح او خطأ، هذا يعتبر اوبجكتيف لو لا؟
اوبجكتيف.
اوبجكتيف. انا اياد مدرسه بالبكالوريوس وعندي علاقه وياه، والرجل ارتاح له ويرتاح لي، واريد امشيه بالامتحان التنافسي. لكن الامتحان التنافسي هو كله مثلا صح وخطأ او اختيار من متعدد. واللجنه الامتحانيه شو مسويه؟ ناطيتني السكورينج سكيم، الاجوبه النموذجيه للاختبار. فتقول لي الفقره الاولى اذا الطالب الاختيار الصحيح مالته هو اي، فاذا جاوب الطالب على اي اجابته صحيحه، واذا جاوب الطالب عن اي خيار اخر غير اختيار فالاجابه خاطئه. وياي طلاب؟
وياك.
يس دكتور.
اياد اختار بي وهي الاجابه الصحيحه اي، ايش قد راح انطي اياد؟
0.
راح انطيه 0. اقدر اقول له صح وانطيه مثلا 2 من 2 على هاي الفقره؟
لا ما
لا
ترى.
هذا تحيز.
No, it's
ما ترى.
objective.
ليش؟ لان هذا it is called objective in scoring. بالمناسبه يعني حتى يكون المعلوماتكم، يعني عاده الكمبيوتر تيست اللي هو انتم راح تقومون به، يعني هو كله اوبجكتيف ان نيتشر، ربما يكون به سيمي اوبجكتيف. هسه راح نجي عليه. فهو انا اخلي اسئله حالي حال باقي ومجهز اللجنه بالحلول الصحيحيه، الحلول الصحيحه لكل فقره من السؤال. بما انه طبيعه الامتحان هو الكتروني فانا ما راح اصحح. من راح يصحح؟
كمبيوتر.
الكمبيوتر. كمبيوتر، فيريد يرتب اموره يرتب ويا الكمبيوتر. شلون؟ ما ادري. كمبيوتر قافل ما يعرف ابوه.
يسحب له امبير زياده والكهرباء. لو نرشيف جهاز UPS.
اياي هو الكمبيوتر مو بحاجه UPS، لان محطوطات له كذا UPS. الكهرباء موجوده المولده مشتغله عليه، وهو ما طاب بجيبه شيل
لا زياده
الكمبيوتر.
زياده.
اي على العموم
الكمبيوتر دي
احنا رحنا على قلنا objective items are not affected by the scorer's personal bias. فأنا من أجيب when I design a true false test or multiple choice test, this is objective in the sense that when my brother selected B instead of A, which is the correct alternative, this is wrong answer, cannot be considered right answer. Even though the examinee is my brother, for example, or my son, or my daughter, and so on. So this is why do we call it objective tests. Another feature of objective tests is called in terms of its response, in terms of its answer. So it is a closed response in the sense that there is only one correct answer to this question. Okay, so this is why do we call it objective items. وانا اعطيكم مثال هنا example, the country to the north of Iraq is what? Syria, Kuwait, Iran, Turkey. So which country is in the north of Iraq?
Turkey.
Turkey. Okay. So if the student selected A, Syria, it is false. B, false. C, false. D is the only close response, correct answer. Characteristics of the objective items هاي هنا مذكورة وأنا كلها شرحتها ترى. Each objective test item has a precisely defined problem that can be solved in a short time. So the secret behind the item can be answered by the students by ticking, which demands short time from the students. So it is difficult to design as it requires much time in designing it. And it is easy in scoring and in answering it by the students. An objective number two, an objective test is usually highly reliable. Why? Because there is only one close correct response. It is not liable to personal bias. An objective test usually has high content validity because, as I told you, each item is devoted to test specific language area. For the test provides wide coverage of subject content. I can design and write so many items that cover the majority of language areas and elements and separate the question. Number five, it can be speedily and easily marked. قلت لكم بها, it can be easily scored and it can be easily scored because I can score it by using the computer itself. So there is no scoring, human efforts paid for scoring these items. 6, marking is not influenced by the markers or scorers, prejudices, or personal bias. Number 7, it has the advances of being easy to examine statistically. We can easily transfer the students' answers to these tests for another computer machine statistical analysis. So this is the nature of and what is meant by objective items. Now let us go to not semi-objective. Go to number 3, subjective or free response questions. Are you there, please? Page 12.
Yes, we are.
Yes. Subjective or free response questions is the opposite of objective or closed response questions. So anything explained in the objective is quite the opposite when we are dealing with subjective. So subjective is called subjective because it is more concerned and productive than a recognition. Number 1. Number 2 is scoring is affected by the scorer's personal bias. Number 3, because it's productive in nature, its answer is not close-ended. It is a free-ended responses in the sense that the students will not make a tick or recognize the correct answer, but rather he has to write a sentence or a group of sentences in order to provide the correct answer for this question.
عفوا دكتور ما لقيت وين هاي بيا صفحة.
صفحة 12 بداية الصفحة.
بالسلايدات؟
أنا ما انطيتكم سلايدات، انطيتكم ملف PDF.
هو بالملف صفحة 12.
نعم.
بس هو بالملف احنا شابتر 4 يبدي صفحة 14.
هي مو نفس اللي عندي.
قال لي دكتور هاي دزتني هم ديك المرة أنا سحبتها. عندي شابتر 4 يبدي 17.
لا 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 لا. نور.
نعم.
أنا دزيت اليوم الظهر ملف على الجروب مال
هي مو
واتساب.
هي نفس المادة هي تقريبا هي نفس المادة.
هي نفس المادة بس أنا شوي مختصرها.
ما أعرف أنا ساحبة ذيك ما لحقت أسحب هذيك الجديدة.
إيه على العموم أنا دا أحكي لكم من الملف اللي دزيت لكم إياه اليوم يعني ويا الظهر.
تمام.
يعني على مود أسهل عليكم المادة لأن الكتاب شوي بشرح مفصل. على العموم subjective is the opposite of objective questions. ناخذ مثال عليه. احنا شرحنا شنو معنى subjective وشلون يختلف عن الاوبجكتيف. ناخذ مثال عليه اللي هو for example انا يمكن ما نعطي مثال. For example I ask you to write an essay or composition related to a specific topic. So in order to answer this question, so what do you do? What do you need to do? Can you hear me, please?
Can you repeat the question, sir?
Ayad, I give you a question. Write a composition of 3 paragraphs about your first day at the university. How do you answer this question?
Well, I can make some notes, then try to put them in an essay.
So in order to answer this question, you need to write 3 paragraphs about this describing your first day at the university. Okay? So here,
Covering context and conclusion.
sorry.
Paragraph consists of 3 parts: topic, context, and conclusion.
Yes, yes. The most important thing is that here you need to write 3 paragraphs. About what? About the topic of composition.
Yes.
So when the scholar came to this paragraph, to these 3 paragraphs, the scoring is subjective because it might be affected by the scholar's personal bias and prejudices. It is a free response because there is no specific answer to this question. So Ayad will write a composition different from what is written by Manar or by Baida or by Shayma and so on. So this is why do we call it a free response, because there is no specific correct response, and due to this feature, its scoring might be affected by the scorer's personal feelings and prejudices and bias. Now let us go to the type in between objective and subjective questions, the so-called semi-objective question. Semi-objective questions share some of the features of objective items and at the same time share the same feature of subjective items. So subjective semi-objective items are designed to elicit answers which may be marked more or less objectively, not so objectively as with multiple choice test, and not so subjectively open-ended or essay questions. So this means that these items, as I told you, share some of the features of objective test and some of the features of objective tests. Mainly, the answer of semi-objective questions should be answered briefly. Okay? So how do we answer them briefly? Because it is designed by the teacher or by the test designer to be answered by using short information, and it requires more than just recognition. It requires a type of brief production, as in the case of the subjective items. Okay, now let us go to the examples about semi-objective questions. For example, I can ask you to transform a sentence from direct to indirect speech. How do you answer this question? أعطيك جملة وأقول لك حولها from direct to indirect speech.
It's one sentence.
Sorry?
يعني جواب بجملة واحدة.
Yes, I will produce a short sentence based on the sentence given by the teacher. I can ask you to change the sentence from active to passive voice. Your answer will be only a short sentence. Okay? So this is why I called you, that it shares some of the feature of objective and subjective questions. It shares the feature of objective questions because you need to recognize the correct answer, and it share one of the feature of subjective because you also need to produce. But what type of production? Not a free response in its absolute meeting, but a short answer, a short sentence. This is one example. Number two, I ask you to define validity, for example. So defining validity doesn't mean that you need to produce a paragraph or one page. You need only to write 1 to 2 sentences only by giving your brief definition of the term validity. Okay, so this is what is meant uh, by semi-objective questions. Now, techniques of testing on page 13. At the end of this page, I give you the main testing techniques utilized in the 3 types of items. So in the objective questions or items, we use to utilize multiple choice, true, false, matching, supplying, and labeling. And the subjective items we use to design composition questions, essay question, and precise questions. Pricey questions. Prices is also an essay. And the semi-objective questions we use to design transformation items, completion items, cloze test, and short answer questions. What is important here, I think that all of these testing techniques are clear to you, but still some points need to be highlighted now. Now, completion, it means to complete the missing part of the sentence. Supplying is the same. Am I right? Hello?
Yes, sir, you are right.
Yes, doctor. Yes, doctor.
So completion and supplying هو نفس الشيء، هو عبارة عن فراغ وتكمله أنت. لكن الفرق بين الاثنين أن الcompletion item is given only as a missing word within the sentence or within the text. Okay, so in the completion there is no key answers given to the students. When we design supplying items, this means that the group of sentences or the text with missing words should be preceded by a group of keywords to be supplied in their suitable blank. فهمتوا له لا؟
العفو دكتور،
ها
بس
طلع
عيد لي اياها السطر الاخير بس.
انتبهوا طلاب.
نعم.
السبلاينج هو فراغ، والكومبليشن هو فراغ في داخل جملة أو في داخل نص. ماشي؟
Yes, sir.
لكن في السبلاينج هم معتبريه اوبجكتيف. ليش؟ لأن هو
They are
شايل
given.
الفراغات من الجمل، شايل الكلمات من الجمل، مخلي بمكانها فراغات. لكن شو مسوي الأستاذ؟ نعطيهم هاي الكلمات قبل الفراغات حتى يختار منها ويكمل الجمل اللي بيها فراغات.
Yes, sir. It's clear.
هذا بالسبلاينج. بالكومبليشن ماكو كي انسرز، فقط
They are
شايل الكلمة ومخليها it is open
from
to the
text.
students.
from text.
نعم.
from text. take it from text. missing word take it from text. من
مدى
completion.
أفهم العفو.
take missing words. Students take missing words from text in completion.
على العموم هي سميت سيمي اوبجكتيف طلاب الكومبليشن لأن هو شال الفراغ من الجملة ومنطى مجموعة حتى يختار منها. فمن أنا أنطيه مجموعة كلمات حتى يختار منها المناسب لهذا الفراغ، هاي يسموه سبلاي.
yes. Objective summary.
أي اوبجكتيف. فهو مثلا صفة big، شال الجملة اللي هي big ومخلي له اياه ويا list of words. فهو إذا ما خلى البيج جاب غير كلمة وخلاها تعتبر خطأ.
Yes.
هاي بالسبلاين، لذلك هي اوبجكتيف. من نجي على الكومبليشن بالسمي اوبجكتيف
Yes.
هو
We
شال
can use.
الكلمة وخلص. فهو بدل ما يخلي بيج
Yes.
المرادف مال الكلمة، فهذه أيضا تعتبر صحيحة. الهيوج والبيج حسب الموصوف طبعا. ماشي طلاب؟
Yes, sir.
Yes, doctor.
نروح على اوبجكتيف طلاب. اكو نقطة اخرى ايضا، اكو الماتشنج انتم تعرفوها. الماتشنج هي list A and list B and the student should match the word in list A or the part of the sentence in list A which is complement in list B. ماشي طلاب؟
Yes,
Yes.
sir. It's too clear.
Yes. In labeling, for example, I give you a figure, only a figure. This figure include, for example, a story that include many events. So each event represent, each part of the story represent a specific events. And I enumerate these parts within the story and give you a list at the end of this figure in order to utilize the in order to select a specific word from among these words that suit this events, which is given number in the figure. فهي عبارة عن صورة طلاب. الصورة هاي تتكلم عن قصة، أو الصورة تتكلم عن عملية إنتاج شيء معين، مثلا كيفية إنتاج الآيس كريم. فإنتاج الآيس كريم هي process which include a group of stages and steps within these stages. فأجي أشر على الخطوة الأولى اللي هي من ضمن إنتاج الآيس كريم، وهو جمع الحليب. أخلي عليها نمبر 1. الصورة الثانية معالجة الحليب، نمبر 2. الصورة الثالثة خلط الحليب مع المكونات الأخرى، هاي نمبر 3. الصورة الرابعة هي تجميد الحليب. الصورة إلى آخره. خلي كل رقم جوا مجموعة كلمات.
استاذ طلع؟
ما